Welcome back to Chirpin with the Chicks, everybody. I'm Bethany Sheehan.
And I'm Savannah Gaida.
Thank you for tuning into our second episode, and let's get to chirpin'.
Yes, well, first off, Bethany and I just want to thank you all for tuning in to episode 2. This is a huge deal, and we promise that this episode will be at least a third shorter than episode 1. We were just so excited. We had so much to share with you all. And yeah, let's get to chirping. As usual, we're going to start with the Rangers. No bias whatsoever. Just starting with New York.
Just vibes.
Just vibes. So, Rangers have been doing quite well in preseason, as expected. Unfortunately, veteran defenseman Ryan Lindgren is out with an upper body injury that he suffered during a fight against the Islanders. However, fear not, because there's been a new defenseman that's been turning a lot of heads in New York and making noise during preseason. And that has been Victor Mancini, the 6'3, 229-pound defenseman, 22 years old. And he's giving us a lot of hope in New York. I mean, New York already has a really strong defensive line. And if you add Mancini into the mix, having Lindgren out for a couple weeks really isn't that much of a concern. Um, there's been a lot of comparisons of Mancini to Jacob Trouba. And when you think about it, Mancini is kind of like a Trouba prodigy, but for 1/10 of the cost. Trouba has a 7-year, $56 million contract, and Mancini signed a 2-year, $1.9 million contract. And there's been talk that Mancini could potentially be Trouba's replacement after the 2025-26 season, where there's potential that Trouba might get traded.
Yeah, and I think this Truba trade has been kind of a topic of conversation for a little while now. I think a lot of Rangers fans are kind of sick of him playing the way that he plays. And personally, if he was on my team, I'd feel the same. He throws a lot of elbows, and while they love the violence, everybody loves the violence that hockey comes with. It becomes problematic when you're getting suspended for plays that could have been toned down. And don't get me wrong, Truba's great. He's a Michigan man. I just think, with all of these problems that he's had over the last couple of years, with all of these suspensions, and then Matt Rumpy coming in, and now Victor Mancini, it's looking like he could have a valid replacement in both of those guys.
Absolutely. And Mancini's specialties are penalty kills and defending 5-on-5s. And he's a very dependable player. And because of his young age, there's so much development here, potential for development. So yeah, I mean, I think Truba has a lot to prove because there's some fierce competition over in New York.
And I think teams would really want Truba as well. I don't think he'll just, go nowhere. I think people would pick him up if he was on the market. We can move on to the New Jersey Devils. So, Jack Hughes. I don't know if this NHL cover curse is coming back or not, but apparently he had a Charlie horse in the last game that he played, so they kept him out of last night's game. So all I have to say for that is eat more bananas, Jack. Keep your potassium up. Monkeys never cramp, so we got that. So another thing that's coming up with the Devils is this Hughes Meyer combination, and this has been something that has been tried in multiple different combinations, most recently being the Hughes Meyer Brat line. I think that they like these two guys, Hughes and Meyer, maybe should not be put on the same line. Okay, like you've got these two very similar playing styles, and maybe they should be working together. These some unlikely pairings work, and in this case, you expect it to work and it doesn't. And I think this is mostly because Hughes and Meyer are more on the offense side. You see like a Heischer, Mercer, Tatar line works really well, and those guys have a little bit of defense in their game. They're all penalty killers, and I think the problem with Hughes and Meyer being together is they're so offense minded. They're not really considering how the defense should look as well. There's more mistakes being made on that line. And I think if you mixed it up, like obviously I really like that Heischer Mercer, either Palat or Tatar line, but I think Hughes and Meyer should probably be separated. Keep that, keep one really offense strong person on each line.
Besides figuring out the lines, there's also so many things that are really up in the air right now. We have a new coach, Sheldon Keefe, and I think he's still trying to figure out the player chemistry on the team. And so I think it's important to really give the Devils some time to adjust to this new coaching style. Everyone's learning. It's a new ball game for everyone. I think ideally Keefe would want a very skilled and speedy line that can get very physical. And I think you can get that individually within every single one of these players, almost every single one. The Devils have a lot of really skilled and high IQ players that are speedy, that are well rounded. It's just a matter of finding that cohesion, which I think is the biggest struggle right now. But I think it'll be interesting to see if the Maple Leaf players were the problem or if Coach Keefe was the problem. Because right now, the Devils look very out of sync. And I know it's preseason and patience is a virtue and things could always turn around. Like, for example, last season, the Devils won all of their preseason games and then had a not so great season. So maybe they're doing a reverse psychology moment on us and they're going to lose all their preseason games and then win the Stanley Cup, dare I say. But I still think there's time. But I did think it was very funny to see Coach Keefe drop what appeared to be an F-bomb on the sideline. All I have to say is welcome to Devils hockey, Sheldon Keefe.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, like with the Maple Leafs, they had a lot of offense heavy players and those guys put on the same line seemed to work more often than not. But yeah, you can definitely see like based on the Maple Leafs how Sheldon Keefe's coaching style works. But I think yeah, the Devils have a lot to learn. They need to adjust. Welcome to Devils hockey. I mean, this is going to be an interesting season based on what we're seeing so far, and hopefully they work it out in the preseason before everything else starts up.
Moving from New Jersey to Columbus, Bethany, I think you have something to say about the Blue Jackets. I'd love to hear it. Share with all the
Guys,
fans.
Guys, I went to the Blue Jackets Capitals game last night and the Blue Jackets put on an absolute clinic. I
More.
thought they were doing really well. They scored 8 goals. Adam Fantilli, he had a hat trick last night. He was on a line with his old college teammate Gavin Brindley. So obviously a big amount of chemistry there. This is his first hat trick this year. I think this first hat trick in a preseason game. I know he had one in rookie camp last year, and he had some in his time at Michigan, but I think this is his first in the actual, NHL game. I know it's preseason, but he was expected to be in the running for the Calder Trophy, but because he got injured halfway through the season, that kind of, took him out of the running. I think that he has a lot to prove this season. I think he'll come back swinging. He looked like he was really on it last night. He was going hard for the puck. Obviously, he got a hat trick, so it worked out in his favor, but I think the Blue Jackets looked really good last night. Their goaltending was really good. Good combo there. But yeah, I thought they looked really good against the Capitals, and they were playing against their Capitals main goalie and still scored 8. So I don't know. I'm excited. It looked really good. So we'll see how it turns out in the regular season.
Okay,
Okay.
moving on to the Dallas Stars. We mentioned Wyatt Johnston last week, and so far he's lived up to expectations. And it's really interesting because he's in his third NHL year, but everyone says that he plays like a vet who's been here for over a decade. He's very mature for his age. He's only 21, but you could tell that he really takes his hockey very seriously. And he's mentioned before that it's really like a lifestyle for him. It's about maintaining nutrition and everything that goes into playing, not just on the ice, but off the ice as well, to make him the best player that he can be. And he had a power play goal against Colorado Avalanche, continuing his habit of scoring goals against Colorado. And that contributed to a 4-2 win against the Avalanche. And I know that preseason results don't matter, you could say, but the Stars are 4-0. And Wyatt Johnston has been playing, he's been a standout so far. And so I would say that it's looking bright for Dallas right now.
And I really hope that is the case. I do like Dallas a lot, and Wyatt Johnston has definitely been a name that we've been talking about, and it's exciting to see that he's continuing his game in the preseason as well. But moving on to the Bruins, I this season is going to be so frustrating for me if they don't sign Swayman. Okay, this preseason has shown us that Brandon Bussey and Jonas Corposalo are not ready to be a number one goalie. Okay, the goaltending is, for lack of better terms, right now. Please,
Out.
Sweeney, we can bleep it.
Children watch this.
Please, please sign Swayman. The current plan allegedly is to sign Swayman before the first regular season game. So I'm really hoping that Don Sweeney and the rest of the Bruins team really work towards that. I guess we'll see how it turns out, but I'm begging you, please sign Swayman. We need him very obviously at this point. So
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, they lost to the Rangers twice, which, you could say was a bit of an unfair advantage because the Rangers had a very highly competitive roster and the Bruins were at a lesser level of competition because they didn't have their best players on the ice. However, players like Brandon Bussey, they're not living up to their expectations. And I agree, they need Swayman. It's a no-brainer.
yeah, and I know like at this point, the talk between the two is that they want a long-term deal, and the only difference is the amount that they're asking for. And I mean, I know what the Bruins cap space looks like. They have over 8.6 million. I'm like, give it to him. Like, give it all. Like, I know he might want a little bit more than that, but why we're offering six? I mean, yeah, he didn't play every regular season game last season, but he really showed up in the playoffs. And I think at this point, like, we're seeing how the other goalie options look, and it's not good. So get it done. Like, just
Yeah.
get it done.
I mean, it's either cheap out or potentially win a Stanley Cup. I think the Stanley Cup holds
Yeah,
value.
I think it's a lot more
Worth the
value.
investment.
Why are we being cheap? Like, yeah, I think we're definitely worth the investment. So, but I mean, we'll see how it goes. We can move on to the Flyers. So Matvey Michkov, I think he's going to be a fan favorite. It looks like he's hunting down the puck. He's going after it. I think he's going to be a really excellent player for the Flyers. I'm excited to see what he brings to the team. But yeah, I think so far he's been looking really good. I think everybody so far that I've seen for Flyers fans have been really excited about the prospect of him being on the team. So hopefully, hopefully he lives up to his expectations in the regular season.
Yeah, and the Flyers have been doing a lot of good recently. John Tortorella actually called up Guy Gaudreau, father of Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau, to come to training camp and help out with some practices. And Tortorella said that at first Gaudreau was a little hesitant, rightfully so, but it looked as if it was very therapeutic for him to be out there on the ice because he he is a coach and he's had a lot of success with developing a lot of youth players. And so I'm sure it means a lot for him to have the hockey community have his back and show support. And this is just another one of those examples that we mentioned in episode 1 of the NHL community banding together, especially in Philadelphia, because this tragedy hit very close to home there. And I think it was just a very class act on Tortorella's part to reach out to Gaudreau and invite him to still be a part of, of the hockey world because that's his life.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad that, Tortorella made that move. I think it was, really sweet. And honestly, I hope that does help Guy Gaudreau. Obviously, losing your sons it's gonna be, it's always gonna be hard, but hopefully at least he can have this as a distraction or something. But yeah, therapeutic to be running drills, all of that stuff. I'm hoping that this really helps him a lot because he's going through such a tough time right now.
He is. But Tortorella actually mentioned a little funny excerpt where he said Guy Gaudreau told him to not be so harsh on the players when he was yelling at them.
I think that's, he's trying to be a coach.
Yeah.
He's being a coach, and I think, he probably was the same with his sons, and now it's coming back to him. So I think kind of makes sense, but yeah, I mean, it's not his job to be the tough one. So I guess we'll see how that ends up. But we can move on to the Buffalo Sabres. So as we know, they had a coaching change in the offseason, and they got Lindy Ruff, who was fired by the Devils last season. The goal is for Lindy Ruff to bring them to another championship. It's been a while since, the Sabres have been in the playoffs. So far, they've won all their preseason games. I know they're going to be they're in Germany right now, I believe. So, they're having some global series games, which is pretty fun. But yeah, I mean, winning all of their preseason games, it doesn't hold too much weight. We saw how that worked for the Devils last season when Lindy Ruff was still their coach. They won all their preseason games, and then their regular season was not great. They also named a new captain in Rasmus Dahlin. So, that should be exciting. I think that'll be a good change for them as well.
Yeah, I agree. And moving on now, going further out west to the Anaheim Ducks. So, starting goalie John Gibson had an emergency appendectomy, so he's out for an estimated 3 to 6 weeks. If it's on the longer end of that estimated time to be out, Lucas Dostal, I think, this is his big break. This is his time to shine because he's coming off a very hot summer. He led Czech Republic to the gold medal in the IIHF World Championship. He was named the tournament's best goaltender, and he stopped all 31 shots in the championship game that resulted in a 2-0 shutout over Switzerland. He's 24 years old. He's young, but I think he has the potential to replace Gibson. I mean, it's always next man up, and you got to take the opportunity. And I think Dostal was given this opportunity now, and this is his time to show Anaheim what he can bring to the ice.
Yeah, and I think if he does prove himself, which I expect him to, I mean, he could end up being the starting goalie. Last season, there were some talks about possibly trading John Gibson. So I think I wouldn't even be surprised if they ended up trying to do that, get a player like a pick for him later in the season if Dostal really does prove himself, and then John Gibson, maybe there's not a need for him anymore. He is an older goalie. So I mean, I think the Ducks might, try to build on that youth and that, obvious success in the World Championships with Dostal. So I guess we'll see how that turns out. I'm excited. We'll move to our friends up in the north, the Vancouver Canucks. My boy Jake DeBrusk had a 2-goal game against the Flames, and I would say, I think he's on fire. He's getting hot. I'm hoping for the Canucks' sake that he stays hot, but we'll see how that goes. I think the Canucks haven't won all their games, and I don't think that's a bad thing. They're testing out different lines, they're doing different combinations of groups. I don't think it says that much yet at this point, but I think that Jake DeBrusk having a two-goal game is really good for him, especially since he's just starting there. So, get the fans excited, and hopefully he'll stay warm and be more consistent with the Canucks.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all we have for you today at Chirpin with the Chicks. Bethany, any exciting hockey events coming up in your life?
I will be at the Capitals Bruins game next weekend. So if you're there and you want to see me, come on up and say hi. But yeah, I'm excited. This is gonna be a good season. I'll be at a bunch of Caps games. But yeah, that's my big event, I guess.
If you see us at Capital One Arena or Madison Square Garden or even the Prudential Center, dare I say, say hi. And as always, follow us on Instagram at Chirpin with the Chicks. Like, share, subscribe. We really appreciate all the support. And chirps out.
Chirps out.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.